Hello, happy stampers. This is Kate with Kate's Paper Creations. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Washington State, and I welcome you to my weekly Casing the Catalog video and blog. Today I am going to be featuring the Detailed Pumpkins, Pretty Pumpkins bundle and the Detailed Pumpkins dies that come in that bundle. And I'm going to be casing this card right here. And it will be very similar, but not totally exactly the same, which is kind of what the point is to use the catalog for inspiration. And you're certainly welcome to always just copy it right as straight across and make it exactly like what they have, or to change it up and just use it for an inspiration. So this is the card I made. It looks very similar to the one that they had. And let me show you how it's done. I did want to show you, this has several layers, and I wanted to make sure they were, you don't always know what size to make everything. So you look at the picture in the catalog and you kind of have to gauge it out. And so I created, pardon my marks from other things, but I created a sketch of the card so that I could figure out the sizing. And so I started with the frame of a standard A2 card, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and then I needed to figure out what size to cut the designer series paper, so I laid that out in here, and then I played around with this, and you can see where I erased it and lengthened it, because when I brought in the pieces, like brought in the dies and things and laid them out, it helped me see just how big I needed and how long they needed to be and so on. And I just kind of laid the dies on here to get a picture of where they would sit and would they fit on here and cover up the way I wanted and so on. And so then I ended up with this sketch that I was then able to just use the measurements from in order to cut my pieces. So as I said, today's card is using the Pretty Pumpkins bundle, which has these stamps and these dies. I'm also going to be using Memento Black Tuxedo Black ink. And I'm going to be using watercolor pencils, and we have 2 sets in the catalogs, the regular set and then set 2. I have all mine together in a single case, and I don't know which is which, but I'm going to be using Pumpkin Pie, Old Olive, and Daffodil Delight markers, and I have a blender pen, and you'll see why in just a moment. The sentiment "You're in My Thoughts" comes from Encircled in Friendship stamp set. These 2 pieces here are cut from crushed curry, Cajun Crazed. Too many C's. Cajun Crazed. This piece is very vanilla. It is, let me get my measurements up here. This is 2 1/4 wide by 3 1/4 long, and I'll show you how I did that little V in just a moment. These were both cut from the Cajun Crazed, and I needed a 4x4 piece to fit those on and run them through the Stampin' Cut emboss machine. The DSP is from Harvest Meadow Designer Series Papers, and it is 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. And I also have some Versamark ink that I used, and gold embossing powder from the Metallics set of embossing powders. The ribbon is from Fine Art Ribbon, and it's 3 inches long. And this piece of Mossy Meadow cardstock that I embossed with the sentiment is a 1/2 inch by 3 inches. And I think that's all of the pieces that I needed to tell you about. Now let's tell you how I built the card. We can take this out of the, well, we might need it. Let's just leave it here. So there's that. So the base card is Crumb Cake. It is a standard A2 card, so it's 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, scored at 4 1/4. Then here is the designer series paper, and again, as I said, it is, I have to read my cheat sheet here, 3 1/4 by 4 1/2, and it gets attached to the front of the card just flat. So we can go ahead and put that on there now. Have that piece done as I move everything around, and to try to remember to keep everything in the camera so you can see what I'm doing. And this has a definite up and down, so you want orientation, so you want to be sure and watch for that when you're cutting. And it comes centered from top to bottom and then slightly to the right, a little bit more to the right than not. So you've got a larger gap here than here, as in the picture. The next piece that can go on here is the Cajun Crazed pumpkin. It cuts it out like this, and I put double-sided adhesive on the back of this one and this pumpkin here, so that it'll be easy to lay down. When you do these, I run them back and forth through a couple of times to get a really good cut. And yet it still can be difficult to get all those little pieces out. But when you peel away the backing, it takes most of them with it. So it's not as difficult as it might seem. And we're going to just put this in here so it's almost to the top. And let's see, over just about maybe 3/8 of an inch, just like that. And it's already sticky, so it's just going to lay down so nice. Isn't that lovely? Okay, so that's that piece. Now we have to bring in that vanilla piece. And as I told you, I'm going to show you how I did this. This is 2 1/4 by 3 1/4. So I brought in my ruler, and half of 2 1/4 is 1 1/8. So I came up a 1/2 inch and over 1 1/8 and made a little mark. And then I took my ruler and put it on the corner and just drew from the corner to the mark. And I don't have to worry about these pencil marks because when I turn it over, they are not going to show. This is the back side of the piece. And then I can just cut those. Just like that. And there's my vanilla piece all ready to go. Okay. Now I'm going to stamp it, so I have the Memento Black. I got glue on the edge of this and it can't hardly get it open. I can't get the glue off either. Okay. This is going to stamp with Memento Black. Sometimes I get that just a little too strong and I might come in and just lightly touch it to get some of the black gone because I don't want it quite so overwhelming. Okay, this is going to go on here and I want most of this pumpkins to show, so this one's going to end up stamping off a little bit. And just up from the bottom, oh, I don't know, just whatever feels good. Just like that. And so you can see part of it stamped off. And that's okay because it's going to get covered up and it's not going to show at all. Then you're going to bring in your colored pencils. And this first little guy is mostly orange. So I'm going to just color him. And you can go with a really light hand. The harder you press, the darker your color will be when you're coloring with these pencils. It goes on pretty smooth, but you're going to have lines and stuff. Don't panic. I have a trick. So just hold on. Get that color in there. And then I'm going to put some darker lines on the spines. I'm going to press a little harder and make them darker. And this is where the blender pen comes in because it will smooth out all of that coloring and just make it look absolutely phantasmagorical, as they say. Look at that. See, doesn't that just make it awesome? I love it. Okay, and then the middle pumpkin is going to be yellow. So this is the Daffodil Delight. And here we go. Again, going on kind of light to start with. And not worrying about covering every little tiny speck of space because when I bring in that blender pen, it is going to smooth out and fill in all those spaces. And then I'm going to put some darker on those spines. And let's make sure my blender pen is clean. And then I'm going to come in and smooth out those. And make sure we've got color everywhere we want it. And I'm kind of avoiding those spines because I don't want to blend them in too much, and I'll come back and get those in a minute. Just kind of making sure the yellow is everywhere I want it to be. Making sure I got out to all the little edges and corners. Then I can come back and kind of spread that out just a little bit. And then the last pumpkin I did in orange as well. So we'll get it all colored in. And get that spread out and smoothed off. I remember when I used to do most of my coloring with blends pens and inks, or blends pens and colored pencils, watercolor pencils. And then I have the old olive for the stems and the leaves. I do have a sharpener, so I can sharpen that up if I need to. For these bigger areas, that's not really necessary. And like I say, I don't have to worry about going all in the same direction. I can just basically scribble my color in there and then add some darkness to it for shading, and then bring in that blender pen, make sure it's clean, and then smooth that out. Get all my little corners and things. I love it. Okay, now we need the die, and I'm going to die cut that out. So let me get my die for that. And I will have to go off screen here for a second and get that cut out. I shall return. You don't get to watch me do this. And we'll try and get it. Try and do a good job of it here. And no, I don't want to cut that out. I'm not thinking. Okay, I don't want to cut that out. That's not going to happen. Oops. Okay, this is going to go on here with dimensionals. So I'm going to bring in dimensionals. You know what I did? I set up about 4 projects for videos, and I think I'm getting some of my projects confused with one another. So you'll have to forgive me for that. So I'm going to attach this with dimensionals. And again, it's just, I want just a little sliver of the DSP to show over here. And it's going to cover up quite a bit of that. And that's what was supposed to happen. And we'll make sure we get it square. And there's that. Then here's the other pumpkin, and it has the double-sided adhesive on the back, so I can pull it up and pull it off, get it out of the way. And it's going to stick out. I want it to be up here, and see, it covers up almost all of that little pumpkin. Just like that. Now I do have a little bit of this over here, and it's going to need a small dimensional underneath it. So I'm going to get me a mini dimensional and put under that one side so that it doesn't stick down too much with that. I think I'll put, matter of fact, I think I'll put 2 of them back there. Make sure I get it in there good enough that it doesn't show. There we go. And that'll support that extra little piece there. Okay, so there's that part. Then, as I said, I did this already. Stamped the sentiment with Versamark and embossed it with gold embossing powder. And I'm going to stick it to this ribbon. So I'm just going to run some adhesive down the length of this and stick it to the ribbon like this. And then I'm going to put dimensionals on the back of this whole thing. Just like this. And then this is just going to go on here however you want it to. I think I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. And there is today's Casing the Catalog video. I hope you enjoyed stopping by today. Remember that the link to my online store is in the description box below, as well as the link to my blog, and I hope you will visit that as well. That's where I post my current host codes and any specials or promotions or anything that are going on there. If you place an order online and use a current host code, an order of $50 or more, I send a gift out to everyone who orders from me. So I hope you'll consider doing that. Thanks again for stopping by.